Hi folks, you're listening to episode 2 of the 59th Minute Fantasy Premier League podcast hosted by myself, the FPL General. I am recording on Tuesday the 27th of February, so Gameweek 28 it's not behind us yet, we've got one game left to go, but we're looking ahead now to Gameweek 29, so we've only got 10 game weeks left now. It's hard to believe this season seems to be going faster than any other season, so we're at the business end of the season now. It's just me on this podcast. The plan was I was hoping to have my first guest on with me this week, but it's been a busy week and just haven't got around to figuring out the technical side of it and getting guests lined up and things like that. So next week, hopefully, I'll have my first guest. Going to keep this one shorter than usual. I'm aiming to make this the shortest one yet. I'm recording a little bit later than I usually do, so I want to get through it as quickly as possible. Just keep it short and snappy. What I'm going to do in this one, I'm going to quickly look back on how Game Week 28 was for me. Well, how it's going so far with one game left. I'm going to quickly update my FPL Watchlist. Then I'll look ahead to this weekend, Game Week 29, what transfers I'm possibly looking at, and talk about captaincy for Game Week 29 as well. I'll let you know who the armband is going to be on for me. Pretty sure I've already decided, so I'll let you know towards the end of the show. And I'll finish up then just answering 3 or 4 questions that I got on Twitter over the last couple of days. So first things first, Game Week 28 we've got one game left. We've got Man City, Arsenal on Thursday because we were playing in the Carabao Cup final at the weekend. As a Man U fan, I enjoyed seeing United beat Chelsea, but I didn't really enjoy watching City lift the Carabao Cup. So bit of a mixed Sunday. I didn't get to watch as much football as I usually do this weekend. I had a couple of things on. So match of the day is all I've seen from Saturday and Sunday's game. So I'm not as well informed this week as I usually am. I'm sitting on 53 points as it stands, with Kevin De Bruyne to play. So a pretty good game week so far. It's given me a green arrow for now. I've gone from about 1,700 overall, and now I'm sitting at 1,335. So again, it's the highest or lowest, whatever way you want to look at it, that my rank has been this season. So very, very happy with that. In terms of who brought the points in Game Week 28, Salah captain. So I captained Salah for the 4th game week in a row now. And in the last 4 game weeks, I think he's brought me in 92 points. With captaincy, so Salah's the man this season, and it's been pretty sweet captaining him the last 4 weeks, and he just delivers every week. You just don't even need to worry about it. So that was a good start with having him captain. Firmino did the business as well. Shaqiri again. Shaqiri's got 3 goals in 3 games now for me, so he's been a superb option at his price. Obviously, he's a great option as well for the blank Game Week 31. So it's nice to be on him early, and I've been reaping the rewards of that over the last couple of weeks. Kane, 6 points. So obviously, I was happy I captained Salah. Salah outperformed him this week, so I was happy with that decision. Apart from that, it was all 2s and 3s. A couple of very frustrating things in defence, especially. I had Nick Pope and Lewis Dunk managed to score his 4th own goal of the season when I decided to start him. It was all looking so good towards the end of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. I thought I was going to get clean sheets from Pope and Dunk, and then both of them, it was just an absolute nightmare. I seen a flash score coming up that Brighton had conceded, which was bad enough that Dunk had lost his clean sheet, and it was a good 10 minutes later that I actually realised that it was Dunk had scored an own goal. So it was just a real kick in the teeth, that one. So a nice big fat 0 points from Dunk, and I'm hoping I'll never have to start him again, because 4 own goals in a season is crazy. I don't know if there's ever been more, so he'll probably end up getting a 5th before the season's over. Pope again frustrating, conceding late, so 3 points from him, which I think he was on for bonus points as well before he conceded, so it could have been 9 or 10 points from him. And Dunk as well, I mean, would have had another 6 or 7, so it could have been a whole lot better. My 2 transfers in this week, 2 free transfers, were Van Dijk and Mahrez. Both of them got 2 points, so that was pretty disappointing, but they're kind of long-term moves. I'm not going to judge them on 1 week. I've got Van Dijk in with an eye on the blank game week 31, so hopefully he can come good over the next 2 or 3 game weeks. And Mahrez, it was very frustrating watching the highlights. Mahrez, he could have easily had a brace. There was one, Butland made one superb save after his howler for the own goal, and then there was another occasion when Mahrez went through and he tried to dink it over the keeper and the defender got in the way. So I mean, 2 points was disappointing from Mahrez, but there was positive signs to take from it, and I'm confident over the next 2 games that he can do the business. I think he's got Bournemouth at home and West Brom away in his next 2, so I'm hoping that he can come good in those 2, judging on his performance in game week 28. I think that's game week 28 covered. So as I say, 53 points. I've got De Bruyne to come on Thursday. So I sold Sterling this week for Mahrez. I'll talk a little bit about that later because I've got a question on it from Twitter. But I'm hoping De Bruyne obviously does well on Thursday, and I'm obviously hoping that Sterling misses out as well, or if he does play, that he stays quiet after I sell him. But more than likely, the way my season's been going, Sterling will start and get 10 points. So let's see. I'm going to move on now and talk about my watch list. So I've updated it. I always update it after I watch match of the day. So I add players who've impressed me, who I'm interested in, and I remove the players that I'm no longer interested in, who were on my watch list. So first of all, the players that stood out to me at the weekend and who I've added to the watch list. Now, I've already got 3 Liverpool players. I've got Van Dijk, Salah and Firmino, so obviously I can't bring in any more. But for those who don't already have 3, Sadio Mane and Robertson in particular, the 2 of them stood out to me at the weekend. Robertson seems to be pretty nailed on at left back, and he was superb again at the weekend. I really don't see Moreno getting back in now because Robertson's just been so good. So I think he's a really good option now if you don't already have 3 Liverpool players. Probably would still favour Van Dijk over Robertson, but don't rule Robertson out if you're looking for a Liverpool defender. Arnautovic again is back, and he looked good again to me on Match of the Day. So I mean, I'm probably not going to bring him in before game week 31 because he doesn't play, but he was playing up front again, and he just looks superb. He looks a handful. He looks like he can score in any game. So he's definitely one I'll be looking at in a couple of weeks' time again if he stays fit. A certain Mr. Lukaku did the business against Chelsea. So Lukaku scored against a big team. Shock horror. So going by the highlights that I've seen, he looked really good. He looked sharp. And we know from before, Lukaku gets a goal or 2 that he can go on a bit of a streak. So again, he's another one I've added to the watch list. But again, it's going to probably be a few weeks before I consider him even. Just because he doesn't play in 31. And I think he's got a tough fixture. I think it might be game week 30 as well. I'm not sure who it is, but I think that's in the back of my mind as well. Troy Deeney scored at the weekend. He's got 2 goals in his last 3 games. He plays in game week 31. He takes penalties. I know Watford have got Liverpool in game week 31, and I think they might have Arsenal as well before that. I could be wrong, but I think they have another big side to play. But don't rule him out. He could be worth a punt. I mean, if you're looking to bring in players who play in 31, Deeney's definitely one to consider. And he's a player who can score against the big teams as well, especially with the fact that he's on penalties. Another striker then as well who also has a 31 fixture is Steve Mooney from Huddersfield. 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 2 games. He played 90 minutes in both, and he plays Crystal Palace in game week 31, so a good fixture. Again, probably wouldn't advise bringing him in yet. Maybe leave it till 31 and see if he's still starting and he's still producing the goods, and maybe just take a 1 week punt on him for game week 31. I mentioned Dawson last week, West Brom defender. I mentioned last week that he's got goals in him, and then he obviously went and scored at the weekend. So he's one of the very few West Brom players that are on my watch list with Game Week 31 in mind. Again, not going to be bringing him in this week, but he's on the watch list for Game Week 31. He scored at the weekend, and there was another corner as well that he was very close to getting to. So he's a player I've always liked in fantasy terms, because he's a big threat from set pieces. The last player I'll talk about is Van La Parra, Huddersfield again. 2 goals in his last 2 games. He's only 4.8 million, so I've stuck him on the watch list as well for 31. I'll just monitor him over the next 2 weeks, and he may be a 1 week punt as well for the blank. He took a penalty. I think it was in Game Week 26. Now, I don't think he's the number 1 penalty taker. There probably was someone off the park when he took it, but it's good to know that he's thereabouts when it comes to penalties as well. So he's one to keep an eye on. I think he's played close to 90 minutes in the last 2 games as well, so he looks pretty nailed on for now. Now moving on to the players I've removed from the watch list, so players I'm no longer interested in, at least in the short term. Charlie Daniels, if you listened last week, my initial battle plan was to bring in Daniels and Van Dijk. As the days went on, then I got closer to the weekend, I just decided, you know what, I really don't want a Bournemouth defender, because they've been pretty poor defensively this season, and I felt I was really just getting Daniels because of his fixture in 31. So I said, you know what, I really don't want them, and I ended up then getting Mahrez instead of Daniels. So obviously Mahrez didn't pay off, but I was quite happy that I didn't get Daniels. I'm pretty sure he was taken off at half time at the weekend. I think he got 0 points because he'd already conceded 2 goals, so potentially dodged a bullet there. I mean, when it comes to 31, he might be worth looking at as a 1 week punt if you're going to wildcard 32 or 33, but for now I'm not interested in Daniels. The same goes for his teammate Jordan Ibe. I don't think he played at the weekend, possibly an injury. Again, Stanislas. I'm a lot more interested in Stanislas when it comes to the Bournemouth midfield, so that's why Ibe's gone from my watch list. Everton then, Nias, he only played 56 minutes, so I'm not really interested in a player who could be taken off that early, especially a striker. Everton are just woeful. They really are. I've got a couple of their players on my watch list, the likes of Walcott and Sigurdsson and Pickford, but I really have no interest because they've just been so poor recently. So I'm probably not even going to look at them until closer to Game Week 31. So it gives me another week or 2 to monitor the likes of Walcott and Sigurdsson and maybe decide which one to go for. Rondon, I don't know why he was on the watch list. He was only on it for a week, probably because he had a Game Week 31 fixture, but I've swiftly removed him now. He didn't deliver any attacking returns again in Game Week 28. He's only got 1 goal in his last 8 games, despite having plenty of shots. So I'm just absolutely no interest in Rondon, or I've no interest in any West Brom players really. I just think they look pretty nailed on for relegation now. It just seems to be a bit of a mess there. Pardew, there's even talk that Pardew's under pressure already, so I would just avoid West Brom until 31. Even then I might not bother with any of them. So that's the watch list covered as well for Game Week 29. Moving on swiftly to my possible transfers for this game week coming up. Initially in my battle plan it was going to be Pope to Pickford this week, but things change in FPL very quickly and I've really gone off the idea of getting Pickford in now. Again, just watching Everton again at the weekend, they just don't look like keeping any clean sheets. And the thing, I've got Pope. Obviously he didn't get a clean sheet at the weekend, but he was very close to it again. Burnley don't tend to concede very many goals, so I'm quite happy to keep Pope for the short term. It looks like Tom Heaton is going to be another couple of games before he comes back, because he wasn't even on the bench at the weekend and he's still playing in behind closed doors games this week. So Pope looks safe for Game Week 29 at least, so I'm going to hold on to him and then I'll just reassess it again for Game Week 30. If we start seeing signs that Heaton is getting closer to match fitness, then it might be time to move Pope on, but for now, I'm happy to keep him for Gameweek 29. Just checking. Yeah, so it's actually Burnley Everton this weekend. So it's Pope against Pickford. So good chance that game could be 0-0. But I'm happy to keep Pope, as I say. Another player I could possibly look at moving on is Alonso. He hasn't done much recently. He's got Man City away, I think, next up. But I'm quite happy to keep him because I think he's got Palace in game week 30. So I'd like to have him for the Palace fixture. And I'm quite happy to start him as well against Man City because we've seen before with Alonso that he can, even if he doesn't keep a clean sheet, which Chelsea are unlikely to do against City, Alonso can get attacking returns. So I'll be keeping him this week, and I'm going to start him against Man City as well. I've no issues doing that. Looking at the rest of my team, I think I'm pretty well set up for game week 29. So I'm looking at actually probably banking my transfer this week, unless there's any injury news later in the week or any other reasons for me to make changes. I've got up front Kane, Firmino, Wilson. Obviously Wilson's been very disappointing, but I'm going to hold on to him and hopefully he can come good in the next couple of weeks and in the blank especially. Midfield of De Bruyne, Shaqiri, Salah and Mahrez. So be quite confident in all those four guys getting me attacking returns this weekend. In defence then it's going to be Van Dijk and Alonso, and then I'll have to, if I do bank the transfer, I'll have to choose between Ogbonna. I hate saying that name. He's been a disaster. So I may end up starting Ogbonna this week. Swansea away. I would probably prefer to start Kenny, who has Burnley away. As I say, Burnley Everton could easily be a 0-0. I see that one being a low scoring game. So I'm hoping that maybe Kenny retains his place for game week 29 and Coleman doesn't come back yet, so that I can start Kenny. And again, hope. So I'll be starting Pope and Kenny. So hopefully it is a 0-0. And I get 2 clean sheets out of it. Otherwise, if Kenny doesn't play, it'll be Ogbonna. So that's the way I'm set up for the moment. Again, as I say, things can change very quickly in a couple of days' time. I may end up making a transfer. So keep an eye on my Twitter at FPL General. I'll let you know if I do decide to change my mind like I did last week. The big debate this week is probably the captaincy. So again, Kane and Salah are the runaway leaders in any captain poll that I've seen online. So again, it's a straight shootout between the two big hitters, the two top goal scorers in the league this season. Both have great fixtures. Salah's got Newcastle at home, and Kane's got Huddersfield at home. So it's a pretty tough decision to make this week if you own both of them, which you should. I've done a bit of research on. I was on Fantasy Football Scout website today, which is a superb site for stats. So I did a bit of I used their comparison tool just to look at Salah and Kane over the last 6 game weeks. So both of them have scored 6 goals over the last 6 game weeks. Salah's got 3 assists, so he wins on that one. Kane doesn't have any assists. Kane actually only has 1 assist all season, whereas Salah has 10. So there's a big difference there. Penalty area touches over the last 6 game weeks. Salah has 45, which is more than Kane. Kane has 37 penalty area touches. So you would think that a striker would touch the ball more often in the penalty area than a Salah, who's, I know he's not really a midfielder, but he's not as an out-and-out striker as Kane is. But Salah has touched the ball more times in the penalty area in the last couple of weeks. When it comes to goal attempts, Kane just edges it 32 to 26, but again, not much difference there. Kane does tend to shoot on sight from wherever he is as well, so that's part of the reason he's got more than Salah. When it comes down to my own decision, the way I'm looking at it is I've captained Salah for the last 4 game weeks, and he's delivered every single game week. As I say, I think it's 92 points he's got me over the last 4 game weeks, so I don't see any reason to move the armband from Salah to Kane this week. And looking at those stats as well, there's nothing there really that is going to sway me towards Kane. Both are superb options. I really see it as a 50-50 decision really. I don't think you can go wrong really on either of them. I would expect both of them to deliver well this weekend. But I'm just going to keep it on Salah. The other thing is, Salah's a midfielder, so he gets an extra point for a goal, and he can get a point for a clean sheet as well. So that he's got that as an advantage. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna spend any more time thinking about it this week or looking into stats anymore. I'm just gonna leave it on Salah because he's been doing the business for me. Part of my reasoning as well is probably because Salah has done so well for me, and he's never really burned me as a captain. It's probably easier to leave it on him, because obviously there's been times in the past where Kane has frustrated us as a captain. So I mean, that's probably is a factor in my decision, and part of the reason why I'm going to just leave it on Salah. But I mean, just watching Liverpool and watching Salah, it's just, if he was more clinical, he could have even more goals. I mean, there's something that just feels really comforting going into a game week, seeing the captain's armband beside Salah's name. It just feels like you don't even need to worry about it, because you know he's going to deliver something. Whereas Kane is probably more likely to blank than Salah. I don't have anything to back that up, but that's just the way how I feel about it. So yeah, I'm not going to ramble on anymore about that. I'm going to captain Salah. I'm saying that now on Tuesday. I'm saying I'm not going to look into the stats anymore. I probably will, but I would say at the moment I'm 90% sure I'm going to captain Salah. So let's see if I do go through with it. But as I say, both are great options. I expect both of them to deliver big, so I don't think you can go wrong really whichever way you go. So that's transfers and captains sorted as well. I'm going to just answer 2 or 3 questions and wrap this up as quick as I can. First question is from Paul Whitehouse. He's asking me, why did I sell Sterling when there was no drop in form and when I had a lot of value tied up in him? So good question. So I sold Sterling for Mahrez last week. I bought Sterling at 8 million, and I think he was worth 9 million when I went to make the transfer. So I sold him for 8.5. So obviously, if I want to get him back in a couple of weeks' time, I'm probably going to have to pay more. I know I think he might have come down 0.1 now, and he could drop more. But back to the question, why did I sell him? The way I looked at it was, Sterling was an injury doubt. But I was already thinking about getting rid of him before the injury came about. So the injury didn't really have an influence on the decision. I was kind of looking at Mahrez or Eriksen before the injury came about. I just really fancied one of Mahrez or Eriksen given their fixtures over the next 3 game weeks, and I just felt that this might have been the right time to get off Sterling. I mean, he's been amazing this season. He's been so consistent. But looking at his fixtures as well, I just thought it might have been an okay time to get rid of him, for someone like Mahrez or Eriksen who could deliver big for me over the next 3 game weeks. So kind of banking on. So obviously I went for Mahrez over Eriksen. So I'm kind of banking on Mahrez to deliver big over game week 28, 29, and 30, to outscore Sterling. Obviously that hasn't worked out for Mahrez in 28. It was very frustrating, as I say. He could have easily had a brace. So I'm hoping that those positive signs, that in the next 2 game weeks that Mahrez can go big, and that transfer will be justified. So looking at Sterling's fixtures was a factor as well. So he's got Arsenal and Chelsea next. Then he's got Stoke, which is obviously good. But then he's got a blank. And then after the blank, he's got Everton, United and Spurs. So it's a tough run of fixtures for City. And I just felt that in my wildcard in game week 32, looking at the fixtures after the blank, that I was probably unlikely to bring Sterling in anyway in game week 32. So that was another factor why I didn't really mind getting rid of him. I've got De Bruyne as well, obviously, so that's another factor why I didn't mind letting Sterling go. So again, as I say, I'm hoping Mahrez can do the business over the next 2 game weeks. When I compare it to Sterling, hopefully he can outscore him, hopefully substantially over the next 2 game weeks. So obviously I need Sterling to stay quiet now. Obviously it could be a mistake, but it was just a risk I felt was worth taking, because Mahrez had quite low ownership really good fixtures. No rotation to worry about because we've got no Champions League or anything like that. So again, I can't really judge the transfer. I'll judge it in once game week 31's over. I'll judge that transfer. So good question, Paul. Next question is from Alex Ball. What chips have I got left, and how do I plan to use them? So I've already used my free hit chip, which I've spoken about in previous podcasts. So I've got my second wildcard, which I plan to play in game week 32. So after the blank 31 to clear out the deadwood and get set up for the double game weeks. Bench boost I will play in a double game week. I don't have a plan of when yet because I haven't sat down. We don't know the full fixture schedule yet for double game week, so I won't. I haven't decided when I'll use it, but when we know the fixtures, I'll decide when I feel is best for bench boost and triple captain. So both of those chips I will more than likely use in the 2 double game weeks, but I'll talk a lot more about them in future episodes of this podcast. So thanks for your question, Alex. Alex Ball is a top FPL manager. He's part of my Elite 64 mini league, so make sure you're following him on Twitter. I think it's at Alex Waterbaby. I could be wrong on that, but Alex Ball, you should find him. If you look at the folk I'm following, you'll find Alex Ball in there. He's definitely worth a follow, and I'm hoping that Alex will be one of my guests over the next couple of weeks as well. Last question I will take for tonight is from Cameron Khan. He's talking about Callum Wilson. Should we sell him now because he's been very disappointing? And Defoe is fit again now. Josh King is there, so there's obviously a chance Wilson could be rotated. I think he was taken off early at the weekend, so that's obviously a bit of a concern. I've got Wilson, and I'm going to keep him. I don't really see any reason to sell him just because he hasn't delivered in the last couple of weeks. He's obviously got the fixture from 31, so I'm going to hold on to him and just hope that he comes good. He's got Leicester away, Spurs at home. Again, you're not really expecting much from him there. Hopefully he can get one against Leicester, that would be great. Don't really see him getting one against Spurs, but then it's West Brom and 31 at home. That's the one where we really want Wilson to perform for us, so hopefully he can get a brace in that one. But yeah, he has been very disappointing. He got our hopes up with the big performance against Chelsea, but since then it's been absolutely nothing. So fingers crossed he'll come good. That'll do for this episode. As I say, next week hopefully I'll have my first guest to spice things up a wee bit, so it's not just me rambling on. I've set up a Twitter account for the podcast, so follow it at 59th Minute Pod. You can get me there as well as at FPL General. So any questions you have for Gameweek29 or even further ahead, that's the best place to get me. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. Always welcome to feedback and suggestions as well for future episodes. Anything you'd like to hear me cover, any guests in particular as well you'd like me to invite on, leave me a comment on, send me a tweet, send me a DM, whatever. As always, support is appreciated, so wherever you are, give it a like, give it a share, give it a retweet, subscribe, leave a comment as well. As I say, Twitter's the best place to get me, but I do reply on all platforms, so you can leave a comment on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you are, and I'll get back to you at some point before the deadline. So enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll keep you up to date on Twitter if my mind changes on anything to do with transfers or captaincy. As I say, pretty sure it's going to be Salah at this point in time, so fingers crossed there's no reason not to go for him. We could have snow this week. Well, we already do have snow in the UK, so it'll be interesting to see whether that affects Thursday night's fixture. I'm hoping it doesn't, because I'm hopeful that De Bruyne can go big for me in that one. So hopefully it's not called off, and it's always nice to have a bit of midweek action to watch as well. So let's hope that one goes ahead. So good luck. Good luck in game week 29, and I'll be back next week hopefully with a guest or two.